Hi guys, Kaytlyn here. Just wanted to pop in here at the beginning of this episode to say sorry for the audio quality. I forgot my microphone when we were recording, and then the Wi-Fi was being a bit spotty. So bear with us, and thank you guys for listening.
Hi, I'm Kaytlyn.
And I'm Brianna.
And welcome to the Readers Clubhouse, where we revisit our childhood favorite content. Brianna, I think you've got a question for me today.
I do, yeah. So we must reveal our deepest, darkest secrets for this one.
Love that. Great place to do that is the internet.
So the question is, what kind of girl were you, Kaytlyn? What kind of animal / girl were you growing up?
Oh, I see. We're talking like, was I super into horses? Was I super into...
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to tell you right now. It wasn't horses.
Yeah.
I actually did have a book series when I was a girl, a wee girl, that was about horses. I can't remember. It was like a bunch of friends and their horses or something like that.
Saddle Club?
I don't think it was a Saddle Club. I think it was something else.
I did read that. I'd forgotten about it till you said it, though.
Yeah, no, it was maybe, I don't know. I don't remember what it was. But no, I was particularly me. I was a wolf girl. So I loved books about wolves. I had wolf memorabilia on my walls.
In your notebooks.
I drew wolves in my notebooks. Although technically, if you count that, I was also a cat girl.
That was
I had one particular cat drawing that I would draw over and over and over again, but I would do different colorings, and that was inspired by the Warrior Cat series by Aaron Hunter. And so that consumed many of my waking days at nights. Just literally like hundreds of those cats. And even now, we've gone through some of my old notebooks as I'm getting rid of stuff, and you're like, oh my gosh, these are full of cats. And I'm like, oh, it's so true.
Yep.
Akko Taco. But yeah, I think more than a cat girl, I was a wolf girl. So I loved wolves. I would buy like wolf, if a novel had a wolf on it, I would buy it. And I remember going into the local grocery store in the town where I went to high school. I was probably like freshman or sophomore or something like that, and seeing the cover of this book, and it was this girl with her hand on a wolf, and it was very like 1980s, 90s cover style. She's got her hand on a wolf, and they're looking like regal and intense or whatever. And I was like, oh my gosh, that looks so cool. So I read the back. Wait up. So I read the back, and it was something about a girl who ended up being raised by wolves because of reasons. So I read the first book, and I remember really liking it so much that I went and bought the other 5 books in the series. And I read all of them. And that was sort of like the end of my wolf obsession years. I was teetering towards the end of it. And the end of that series is really, I think, might have been what really ended it for me. But yeah, I can't remember the title of the series, but the author was Jane Lindskold.
Yep.
Yeah. I remember emailing her one time while I was at work. So I worked at a seafood thing, and I emailed her about wolves.
Love it.
So anyway.
Well, for me,
yeah, I was gonna say, what kind of girl are you?
Was a horse and dolphin girl.
Yes.
I had memorabilia at one point and stuff. And I was obsessed with some books about dolphins. Not just, they're like fiction books about dolphins. And then also, something we may talk about at some point, the Dragons of Pern series and stuff literally has hyper intelligent dolphins in it and stuff. So it's just like all of that. Yes, internet, I'm aware of the atrocities dolphins have done. You don't need to remind me and everything. Like, well, let's not go into that. But baby Brianna loved dolphins. But I also was obsessed with horses. So I had like a giant book of like all the different breeds of horses, all that kind of stuff. So that actually helps us transition into what this next book we're talking about, because horses actually are a big part of it in a way and everything. They're like their own characters basically in this duology. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and in this book, part of the reason why we brought up that is this is that animals are actually a really, really big part of the story and everything in some ways, and especially horses. So if you were a horse girl, I found this book in fifth grade. Like I was full
Really?
on, yeah, fifth
I
grade
did
was
not know
the
that.
year that I found this. Yep. I have a very distinct memory of, I don't remember if I found it in like the library or whatever, but I remember having it. I remember really like getting in, like I'd gotten it. This is the thing. The first bit is really slow,
Hmm.
very slow. Like I almost dropped the book because of how slow the beginning felt. And again, this was me in fifth grade. I have a very distinct memory of this. Then once you get past a certain point, when so and so gets taken, and we'll go into that in a bit, I ate that thing up.
Mm.
Like I devoured it, and then every year for the rest of my school time and everything from fifth grade, I think basically until I graduated almost, or even just a little bit after that, I read it every year
Yeah.
and stuff. So it was really big. So the book that we're talking about today is The Blue Sword by Robin McKinley. So from what I just told you, you already are aware this book was very life-changing for
Hmm.
me in some ways. Um, and it was came during a time where my life was very turbulent. And so having this like journey of this young woman, I don't know, just really spoke to me at the time and
Yeah.
everything. So really important to me in that. So The Blue Sword, again, like I said, was written by Robin McKinley. It was written in 1982. So uh this was pre both of us being
Mm.
born. And it's a fantasy book. It is set in a on not Earth, basically. We don't have a name for this world, and the duology
Right.
is just called the duology. So we don't have a ton of information about how like the world totally works and everything. Just kind of how certain things work within the setting that we're in. So that's a really good thing to keep in mind. And this is also, it says on like Wiki and everything, it's a middle grade, which I can definitely believe in some ways because there's certain stuff that kind of gets left out of it that probably would be more of
Right.
a for young adult thing. So middle grade definitely sort of fits it, but it's honestly a book. I feel like that's something for everybody of every age,
Hmm.
uh, for various reasons that we'll probably go into after I do my little uh, summary of the plot
Beetle.
and everything. So yes, are you ready, Caitlin, for that summary?
I'm so ready.
Perfect. All right. Young Harry Crewe is an orphan and has moved out to a remote outpost in the country of Daria at the behest of her older brother, Richard. In the months that she is there, she grows to love the desert that surrounds the outpost and is grateful to Lord Charles and Lady Amelia, who have taken her in. Harry and her brother are both homelanders, and their people conquered much of this country 80 years before this. They now live in a tense peace with the remaining free hillmen that live in the hills beyond the desert that covers this part of the country. One day, the king of the hillmen, Corlath, arrives and requests assistance from the homelanders in fighting back their longtime enemy, the Northerners. After a tense conversation that comes of nothing, he heads out to leave and glimpses Harry watching him, and something odd occurs as they hold each other's gazes. The moment passes and he heads out without a second glance. We soon learn that the Denumerians, the original name of the Hillmen, still have magic in their blood, namely in the King's line, and Corlath finds his own volatile magic moving him to kidnap Harry. He takes her back to his camp, and in the days that follow, Harry experiences many strange things, but also finds herself adapting oddly easily to the whole scenario. When she drinks a special drink, it gives her visions, and then she sees Lady Erin, Damar's hero of ages past. This spurs Corlath to bring her into the fold. He gives her a horse of his people, named Sornin, and asks one of his riders to teach her to fight. Her teacher, Mathen, teaches her for 6 weeks, and she again finds herself learning everything oddly quickly, almost like it was already a part of her. As they finish out the training, they head to a special event where Demarians test their mettle. As she fights her way through each round of combat, she finds it extremely easy until she meets the final combatant, a man on an oddly familiar horse. As they fight, she can feel that he is toying with her, and she pushes and slices off the cover on his face and reveals it is Corlath. He does best her, but she has become the champion of the event, and many praise her prowess. The Demarians begin to prepare for war against the Northerners who are on their way, and Corlath makes Harry one of his riders and gives her Gaunteran, the blue sword that Lady Arryn once used. They set out, first stopping by to speak to an odd mythical man named Luth, who reveals that he has been alive since Arryn's time. He gives Harry some encouragement, but Harry is angry at the fact that Corlath will not warn the Outlanders, the Hill term for Homelanders, that the Northerners could come through a different pass than the one that they're heading to defend. As they leave Luth, Harry leaves, and two others follow her, friends she has made since the event she won. They travel first to the outpost, where she finds an old friend, Jack, willing to help her with a small force. Then, due to connections and odd mystical happenings, she gains two other smaller forces, and they head to the pass. It is a hard fight, as the leader of the Northerners has chosen to go this way. During a break, Richard, Harry's brother, rides in, having just missed her and Jack as they left the outpost. Harry is exhausted, but feels oddly compelled to climb up a nearby mountain after he joins them. As she makes her way there, she feels her own magic, that she had found comes from her Demarian blood on her mother's side, surges with the help of Gaunteran, Lady Arryn, and Corlath, who is able to reach her from a great distance at her behest, and she brings down the mountains around the force of Northerners, stopping them completely. The small party recovers and heads back. It is tense for only a moment as Harry meets Corlath again, until he reveals that he had realized his love for her and asked for her hand in marriage. During her journey, Harry has also realized this and agrees. As the story ends, we get to see Corlath and Harry bring their country even closer together, grow a family, and also build a better bridge between the Demarians and the Homelanders.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Every time. We say this every time, but like, it's just so much. There's only so much details you can fit in. So many things, Brina.
So many.
So many thoughts.
Lots of thoughts.
Where do we want to go? Should we just go straight into your thoughts on the book?
I think we should. Yeah, I do think. Yeah, let's just kind of go with that, everything and stuff. So,
what were you gonna say? What was your suggestion?
I was gonna say start with the inspiration for the story.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Where I was gonna go. Yeah. So, I was doing some reading about Robin McKinley and everything, and she's written a lot of stuff, and I feel like this is her work that she's most widely known for, honestly. She has a lot of other stuff. She does like a lot of fairy tale retellings, fantasy. She has a couple of like more young adult stuff that I've read one of them of, but it was a really long time ago. So she has pretty wide taste. She was also married to is it Peter Dickinson? I think it's his name. He wrote the Golden Compass, which is a very popular series. So lots of like connectivity and all that kind of stuff. So the inspiration, I had been doing some reading. The inspiration for this story was old classic literature and desert romances. And especially during, I feel like the turn of the century-ish, there was like a lot of stories. And also because, let's be honest, Britain had conquered a lot of foreign lands. So there was a lot of stories that we see that are inspired by like that is like considered British literature, but it's like set in places like honestly the Jungle Book is a really great example of that. I can't think of another one right now, but like of British folk being in these lands or that kind of a thing. It's not even maybe just British, but like that's a very popular thing. So that also I feel like where desert romances come from is a little bit of that as well. There's a very popular genre. It kind of still is in some ways in some aspects of the romance sphere and stuff, and I cannot tell you all of the reasons why, but I will say I kind of get the whole desert thing, more the desert thing, not some of the other stuff, because for years the desert was always such a fascinating setting for me and stuff. I never want to live there. I don't want to go running through the desert or anything like that, but like there's just something about it. Like there was another book that I read that was set in a desert that was very like there's something mystical about the desert is I think a big part of the draw of it. So there's that aspect of mysticism and also mystery in that and stuff of just like what's out there. It's very hard and harsh place. The people who survive it have survived a lot, all this other stuff and everything. It's very fascinating. So that's where some of the inspiration came from with this. One thing, one caveat I do want to say is Robin McKinley was born in Ohio.
Oh,
It's
that
just,
is
yep.
hilarious.
It was, yeah. I don't know if like Peter Dickinson was British or anything, but like it's very interesting.
A couple of points.
Yeah.
Sorry, the internet got weird for a moment.
Oh, okay.
Peter Dickinson did not write The Golden Compass.
Oh, he didn't? I thought he did.
No, Philip Pullman wrote The Golden
Oh, thank you for
Compass.
clarifying for that. Okay, I don't know why
You're
I got them
welcome.
confused. What did he write?
He wrote a lot of
He
things, but he is
wrote with
British.
her. I could have sworn.
Yeah, yeah. He wrote with her. He wrote a bunch of stuff with her, but he
Yeah.
also like he wrote a bunch of things. I'm like he's a
Okay.
relatively well-known British author. Um, I don't know all the stuff
Yeah.
that he like. Yeah. But you said Golden Compass, and I was like, hold on
Why I
a
got him
minute.
and Philip Pullman mixed up.
I don't know.
Thank you for fact checking me.
You're welcome.
Yeah. I am glad my intuition was correct in thinking that he was British because that
Mhm.
makes a lot of sense with some of where her inspiration came from and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very fascinating seeing the inspiration that she utilized for this. If you read it, it's never really mentioned, but she definitely took a lot of inspiration I from like nomadic desert people. I believe honestly, specifically in some ways from like Arabic people of probably it's very general. It's like not like oh you could pinpoint specifically that group or whatever. Um and there's a couple of things within this that's like one of the things I think is interesting that we run a lot into in books that have I'm a foreigner in a foreign land, I am basically the chosen one a lot of the time.
Hmm.
Is a lot of the time the foreign land that they're coming to is like people of color.
Hmm.
Then that's again a range of what that could be and everything because it could be a couple different things. And then generally the person who is the one coming as the chosen one is white and stuff.
Yeah.
So the thing that I think is interesting that we don't see a lot in those ones, and those ones, I'm not saying like this is perfect in any way, but the thing I do slightly appreciate is the fact that Harry is not fully Homelander. In this story, it never talks about, actually, that's a lie. It doesn't particularly talk about like, oh, skin color a ton and stuff. There is mentions of it.
Hmm.
It's just like very much like the hill folk are a darker skin tone, that kind of a thing. And then it doesn't really mention Homelanders all that often, but I do think they generally are like paler, is what they say. So very much uh like a darker skin tone and then a lighter skin tone. So we have those differentiations. It's very evident from the beginning, though, that Harry does not like everybody else around her, which is again a normal thing and stuff. But there is that like we find out eventually later in the book, oh, you're from this land, just distantly related, kind of a thing and stuff. It's very interesting. Uh,
I think
I don't have a lot of. Oh yeah,
one of the things that they do talk about, because they do mention skin tone a little bit, and a big part of it is like skin tone and color does actually relate to like the climate and atmosphere of the place that you grew up in, right? And so
yeah,
the homeland, quote unquote, is basically Europe slash England, if not like
yeah,
if it's not just the smaller England. And so
yeah,
it makes sense that people from there would have lighter skin because historically Europeans have lighter skin.
yeah,
Again, based on the climate and atmosphere of the place that they lived in. Where
yeah.
people in the desert tend to have brown skin, again,
Mhm.
because of the not cultural, sorry, climate that they live in. So if you're in a desert, you're more likely to have brown skin for, I mean, genetic reasons, if, you know, those reasons. But also, it even talks about Harry's skin tans as she's spending, days and days in the sun, that actually she's got, and I think sometimes they even, like McKinley will mention not just brown skin, but she'll like sun tanned skin, that if they weren't in the sun, if you were a recluse or something like that, you might have lighter skin. But because they're out in the sun running around doing, desert people things, I guess, then you have skin. But one of the things they do talk about that is a bigger, I noticed quite a bit more, was hair color and eye color. But those are the two
Yeah.
things like they mentioned quite a bit. With most of the Debarians having brown hair, brown eyes,
Yeah.
and then the Outlanders having, I don't know, a mix of things basically. But especially Harry having like blonde, sort of tousled hair and hazel eyes. And then of course eye color also matters, because when you have magic, when your magic's really strong and you're feeling the Keelar really strong, your eyes turn gold.
Yeah.
And I was in reading this, I was like, oh, that's where my weird obsession with people with gold eyes started. Gotcha. Okay. It all comes back to Corlath.
Oh my gosh. We'll get to that in a second. So yeah, there's some interesting things in this, and I'm trying to think where my thoughts were going with that. There's some interesting aspects of this, honestly, because of the fact that we're basically dealing with a more or less multi-ethnic character who like comes from two different worlds technically, but was raised in one the whole time, knew nothing of another, and is now fully immersed in it, and then is magically like even more fully immersed in it. We kind of like we see, I mentioned this briefly in the summary, but like one of the things I did like about this is one of the tropes we see a lot in like Chosen One things is, oh, this person is like knows how to fight in like a month and stuff. And sometimes there's no explanation as to why that is and everything. And sometimes we do get characters who've been doing this for years. Shout out to Tamora Pierce's characters, because that's usually what their thing is and stuff, is they have learned how to fight. But with this one, I think it gives the whole aspect of this, and also the Hero's Crown, because that's the dual, that's the prequels, and it's the second in the duology between the two of them and stuff. It's very much about this like odd mystical mad time for why certain things are. It's just like, oh, there's these different pieces that are thrown out, but then like the true reason as to why this is happening or that kind of thing is never fully explained a lot of the time. So there's a lot of mystery behind everything. So it's just like very interesting, like how that all kind of works with the story, and kind of like the themes with it and stuff. So
yeah.
And then something I'm gonna very briefly mention. I listened to this as an audiobook. And I don't recommend it. We'll say that. The person they have narrating it seemed like a very, very sweet person. Didn't have a bad voice. It's just for some reason they decided to not have like any inflection with any of the characters. And I don't need everybody to be able to like do a very convincing, like in this case it was a woman reading a convincing man's voice. Like I don't need that. I need inflection though, is what I need. So I need to be able to tell that it's, in this case, like let's say when it's Mathen and Harry talking to each other, which is a whole big chunk of a certain part, I need to be able to tell the difference, and I really couldn't, except for when it was clarifying that it was Mathen talking or it was Harry and stuff. And there was a few times there was an inflection, and it was usually if somebody was like in a high emotional moment, but it was like minimal. So honestly, it really felt like a grandparent reading you a book, and they just kind of are reading it, and that's it and stuff. So that was honestly very disappointing, and it marred some of my enjoyment of rereading this slash listening this again. And I do wish I had just read it. One of the things I will say about this book, even within all of that, there was moments I was like listening to a sentence being said, and my brain was like, yes, clocked into that sentence, and like I remember that sentence because I
Hmm.
again read this book every year for like 7 or 8 years,
Hmm.
for or even a little bit longer, probably for almost a decade, and it was a really, really big part of my life.
Hmm.
So like even in those moments where I was like, wow, this is terrible, I don't like this and everything, I was like still connecting with the text basically because of how much it like had spoken to me as a kid and stuff. So that was like that's one thing. I don't recommend the audiobook and stuff. And this is actually part of the reason why I am reading The Hero's Crown with that. So
Hmm.
Kaytlyn, want to share any of your thoughts? Because I
Yeah.
think we'll do the favorite character at the end and everything.
Yeah. Um, I actually had taken a few like quotes, notes,
Mm.
and I left my book upstairs and I'm not gonna go get it. It'll take me too long.
Yeah.
Um, but there was a few things I want to say. First is Corlath is hot, and it's just as a
Guys, when I opened the notes earlier, I hadn't seen Caitlyn's notes yet, and I that's the first one at the top of her list. And I'm like, I'm not throwing shade because I'm like not gonna disagree, but it made me laugh. It was so
you
funny.
absolutely cannot throw shade, Brianna. You
No,
can't.
I can't. It's
Um,
just it still is funny.
I think I texted you this also during when I started rereading it, is like
Yes.
the way that I don't know, the way that she wrote him was just
Yeah.
very attractive. And I was like, okay,
I
Robin, I see you. I get it.
yeah.
Tall, like
He's
royal
definitely the
man from
stereotype of tall, dark, and handsome.
yeah. And
Yeah.
like he's he's not emotionally unstable or unintelligent, and actually like
No.
he shows through the whole book that he is emotionally intelligent. He just is also driven a bit by Keelar, which,
Yeah.
is the thing. Um, and there's just a lot of different things. He didn't want to take Harry. That wasn't
No.
something he wanted to do. His magic was like, hey, she's gonna save the kingdom, so you need to, well, no. His magic was like, take her. And he's like, no. And his magic's like, well, you're gonna anyway. So, you know,
Yeah.
talk
Otherwise, I'm
about
gonna give you a terrible headache forever.
literally forever. Talk
Yeah.
about um non-physical things or like other things being characters. We talked about the horses are kind of characters in this. They have
Yeah.
a little bit of personalities. It's not the same way as like Entangled,
Yep.
where Max
No.
literally has a personality and is a character. But in here
Yeah.
they are, and I'm just joke, and I'm so grateful for this joke. They carry the story in a certain way. And I know that is their horses, so of course they're carrying people, but
Literally
also
and figuratively.
literally and figuratively. They're really important to the story. Key
Sornen is
Soren,
best horse.
best horse. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Um,
Well, actually,
absolutely.
I'll say we'll talk about him in the next book, but Talent is actually best horse
Yes,
in my
Talent
opinion. Yeah.
is best horse. Um, but yeah, so the Keelar, the magic that Corlath and then we find out later Harry carries, um, is
Yeah.
also a character. It is a subtle
Yes.
character, but it drives the
It's
story forward.
Yeah, it's for other nerds listening. It's very similar to the Force in some ways, but a
Yeah.
little bit more hands-on,
Yes.
honestly, and a little bit
Yes.
less. It's weird. It's the same. They're both very mystical, but there's something about the Keelar that's more of a gut punch
Mhm.
than the Force and
Yeah.
stuff. So yeah,
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's definitely um like the Force is the Force,
yeah,
but I mean, I guess in Star Wars there's good and the bad side of the Force, whatever. But in Keelar, it's just Keelar,
yeah,
and it's a
yeah,
tool, and what you do with it is kind of makes you evil
yeah,
or not or whatever. Um. Anyway, so his
yeah,
Keelar is what drove him to taking Harry, and he the entire
yeah,
time is fully regretful that he has to do this because he's like, I don't want to do this.
yeah.
Which is not usually how you see in kidnapping stories. Usually it's the man who
No, I
kidnaps a
actually was
woman.
gonna. Yeah, I actually was gonna mention that briefly because there's a lot of discourse. I read romance and everything a lot. I don't like dark romance. There's some stories that I read that have a dark aspect to them, but they're not, the characters themselves aren't genuinely dark
Mm-hmm.
usually. And it's very popular right now, and I'm not trying to like shame anybody for this and stuff. But I actually the last time that I remember reading this, I remember having that like, oh, why are we having this man kidnap this woman kind of a thing and stuff. Like I was just like, why did I like this as a kid? And I like
Mm-hmm.
looking at it more of a nuance, more of an even more of an adult than I was because that wasn't that long ago. It was like probably 5, 6 years ago, I think, last time I read it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Looking at it now, and I'm like, it is about that intention behind it, and it was a story plot and it was a way to get Harry from point A to point B and stuff. But it was all about his intention the whole time with
Mm-hmm.
it. And a lot of the time, the intention with like kidnapping stuff or like some darker stories or like some dark romance is it's all about the dude wants usually, or there's like some weird psychological thing behind it. And this, Corlath, like you said, literally doesn't want this. He's just like, I have too much going on right now. I feel so bad for this girl, why are we doing this? But for
Mm-hmm.
some reason, the thing that gives me basically a migraine every time I don't do what it
Mm-hmm.
wants her to come with me and everything. So
Mm-hmm. And
it's
then
very interesting. Yeah.
as he finds out, oh, she's got potential. She's got Keelar. There's something. He realizes that.
Yeah.
And this is one of the quotes I was going to pull out, but I unfortunately again left my book upstairs. But he talks about how the night that all the riders, his sort of special forces, gather together, they're sitting down, they're sharing a drink called Miltar,
Yeah.
and um it passes through, and I don't remember if this is before or after Harry drinks it, but basically she gets angry 'cause she's like, "Why am I here? What's the point of me being here?" And she locks gaze with him, and she's angry and she's feeling
Yeah.
the anger fully. And he realizes in that moment, oh, she has magic. She has Keelar.
Yeah.
And he's like, she can never have, like, she never could have turned the full force of her gaze on someone before. Because
Yeah.
otherwise, maybe when she was young, she noticed that the people she didn't like started having accidents happen to them.
Mhm.
Or, and then there's a line that's like, he also, as an offhand thought, was like, she must never have been in love before. Because
Yeah.
anyone that she, like, any man who, like, locked gaze with her while she was, like, in the throes of passion, essentially, it would have been dangerous.
Yeah.
Um, and it's that moment that you're like, something's going to happen between these two. I mean, unless you're me, who has read it a few times and is like, um, so that was just
Yeah.
really cool. I really liked that part. I like that it is emotion driven, but it's also a tool. It's sort of like actually the
Yeah.
bloodbath in Redwall, that it is a battle rage that
Yeah.
gets brought up that helps them in battle, and their Keelar is something that helps them in battle. Um, so that was
Yeah.
really cool. I enjoyed that. I also really like Mathen. We'll talk about favorite characters in a minute. He is one of mine, and
Yeah.
he's always been one of mine. But
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
there's a few things that with him, I think the fact that they go off to train is always classic, training montage sort of
Mhm.
thing. The fact that the Keelar helps
Yeah.
sort of tone the body to understand what direction where things are happening. That was a cool training montage. It's sort of like I don't know, I'm trying to think of a good comparison or metaphor, but like um I mean, it's basically her, and it's said this a few times. It's like unlocking a part of her brain that she didn't realize
Yeah.
she could use. And not only in fighting, but also in the language, because they don't speak the same language. And so she has
Mhm.
to learn
No.
how to speak Demarian. So that's really cool. I love the Laproon trials. I think that's a really cool thing to do every
Yeah.
3 years, to let like anybody can come test their battle skills and earn a belt, earn a sash. I love the cultural idea of like wearing the sash, and actually if you've been bested by somebody who's a really good fighter, you wear the tear proudly. I think that's really cool
Yeah.
because especially in a Western culture that, ripped clothes or torn clothes are kind of, um, which is what sort of the Homelander thing would be, having a culture that's like,
Yeah.
actually, this is a sign of honor that my
Yeah.
sash was cut by Laprin Minta, the the one who won the thing. Like, I just think that's really cool. And then the fact that through that, like her defeating everybody, which I mean, you're kind of like, oh, few, she could have had a little bit more difficulty getting there. She doesn't have to be that like plot armor, main
Yeah.
character plot armor.
Yeah.
Um, but she makes two friends out of it. I think
Hmm.
it's just super cool because they're both like, you cut my sash. We're besties now. Um,
Yeah.
and they're like, we're gonna be your I mean, this is again, spoiler alert, but like we'll be your riders eventually. We'll become the Queen's riders instead of
Yeah.
King's riders.
Yeah.
I just think that's really cool.
Yeah. The funny thing with the sash, like that's something I also really love that kind of stuff. Like this, like something that's very prominent and it shows a lot of stuff. The other really big thing that I think is really interesting with this is how much Harry doesn't realize some of that because again, she didn't grow up any of this.
Yep.
So the significance of some of the actions that happen don't make sense to her fully because yes, she's being basically supernaturally like caught up on certain stuff, but you still don't have the whole context of everything because some of it's like you have to have grown up with it to really understand it. Like this is a really funny example of this, but it's a little bit similar. So Parks and Rec,
Hmm.
uh, it's a weird direction
Hmm.
to go, but if we have most of our characters have grown up there or like lived in that area for a really long time. But then in like second season, third season, we get Ben, and I forget the other dude's name because Ben was the most important of the two of them. Oh, it's Chris. And Ben is a very serious dude. He's grown up in other places. And then we get the episode where what's the pony's name?
A little Sebastian.
Little Sebastian. Little bit Sebastian shows up. And everybody's like, Little Sebastian. And he's like, I don't understand. And everybody's like, you don't understand. And it's just like, I feel like that's such a great example of you don't get it unless you were there kind
Hmm.
of a thing. And some people pick it up a little bit more quickly than others, and Ben unfortunately just is not the one. So this is it's a weird, like very comedic example of a
Hmm.
similar thing with Harry, where she did not understand the significance of having her sash and everything. And there's multiple times that happened, and she kind of was
Hmm.
getting it, but it kind of leads to an interesting aspect later when she sneaks off finally to be like, I've got to go take care of this. Corlath isn't going to, for whatever all the reasons are that we're not going to go into fully, and I need to go take care of it. She in no way wanted to, um, what's it called? Like forsake Corlath or any of that kind of stuff. She's just, I need to go do this. But she accidentally leaves behind her sash. And she mentions multiple times she feels like naked without it basically and everything. And she like didn't mean to, but she also didn't realize fully the significance of leaving behind in a lot of
Hmm.
ways. And also Corlath, the other thing we love about Corlath is he has grace for the fact in a lot of ways that she doesn't understand certain stuff, but also because of his understanding of his own culture, he starts to wear it. And
What a
we
sassy little
find
man.
out after they come back together, yes, he knew. He knew. He's like, I know she didn't leave this on purpose. She wouldn't do something like that. And I know what people are going to think when I'm about to do the thing I'm about to do, and I'm okay with that. And apparently, between men and women warriors, if they swap sashes, it's like a declaration of love or marriage or what. I can't even remember all of it back then. So it's like it literally explains it in like because one of the things I was going to actually mention this. One of the things that Robin McKinley loves to do is flashbacks,
Hmm.
like that. Literally, a large chunk of the first part of uh both the Hero's Crown and also
Yeah.
the Blue
Yeah.
Sword are flashbacks of hair. That's I think I love her, but like unfortunately that's a huge part of her writing because I'm
Yeah.
remembering in some of her other stuff she does that. So I'm like it makes it very slow because she's like catching you up to where you need to
Hmm.
be in the story, but she kind of like sometimes flits between things. This one isn't as egregious, honestly, but like you get like this like info dump briefly about the sashes and how that all works and
Hmm.
like basically like oh yeah Corless's love her, blah blah blah, that kind of thing, everything. But it also is another big part of like Robin McKinley's writing is this like flashback stuff. So like Corlath knew what he was doing, and he also had grace for Harry and knowing that she didn't do what she did because of some like I am cutting off. But it's really funny because the whole time she thinks that she's going to be like they're not going to want anything to do with her, and it's like literally not up to the point that they see each other again. She's like, "Oh wait, I like him and he likes me," and then all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite like romance stories is this book. I think it's just
Yeah.
super funny. It's super good. I love that from the moment she leaves, she's like, this is going to
Yeah.
make me an exile. The this is
Yeah.
the blasphemy that will condemn me to hell, basically. And every person I'm
Yeah.
fully confident that every person that traveled with her is just like, it's not as bad as you think. Like, we really don't think he's going to be as mad as you think, especially the two people that came with her. They're like, okay, Harry, sure. Like, you'll have, okay, whatever. You just defeated the evil king and
Even Jack.
yep, yep, I know. She's like, I'm going to go into exile.
Even Jack, who is
Yep,
a
yep.
fully a Homelander, he's like, girly, I don't think that's true. I don't think it's as bad as you
It's
think it
definitely not as
is.
bad as you
Yeah.
think it is.
Love that.
And I also, Jack isn't, and actually the interactions with Jack,
Yeah.
are something I want to mention because after, so Jack is the colonel
Yeah.
at the fort, sort of the last Homelander fort before you get into sort of the native country. And
Mhm.
he and Harry bond a little bit because Jack loves the desert. He's grown
Yeah.
to love this place that he's been assigned, and so he's one of the few that actually appreciates it.
Yeah.
And also he's desperate to ride a horse. That's one of the like Demarian horses. He desperately wants to ride one.
Yeah.
And
One of the hill horses. Yeah.
yeah. And he and Harry bond because Harry's starting to love the desert. She doesn't hate it the way that some of the other Outlander people do. And Jack's like, "Oh, we're we're of the same mind. We're kin in that." And after she goes back to the fort to basically warn them, "Hey, the Northerners are coming and they're going to come through this place. Can I have any help?" Jack says, "Well, there's a few of us that have been here a long time. We'll come help you. The rest we can't really speak anything to." Um, and Jack essentially forfeits. They call him missing in action because he ends up
Yeah.
being
And that was because one of the friends basically they had at the outpost
Mhm,
fought for it. I
mhm.
don't remember it was Sir Charles or the
Yeah,
other guy who
it
was
was
the dad of
Charles.
those two girls from the beginning. Like one of them really went to bat to like we want them as mission in action and not like dishonorably discharged. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, and which is super cool. And also the fact that it convinced Charles to sort of take things seriously was really cool. But Jack, as Harry's explaining sort of just
Yeah.
the situations, what's happening, she's like, don't bring any guns because it's not going to work. They're just going to,
Mhm.
all the things are going to
Yeah.
misfire. And he's like, oh, so my theories were true. These things that I believe.
Yeah.
And there's this moment where he sees, and she actually writes it really beautifully, but, where he sees the thing that she has become and like the outline of the thing that she has become, which is this warrior, this Demarian warrior queen essentially, and
Mm.
like the sword as well, like does this blue glow and she's lit up by blue and it's just super cool. And he's like, I'm going to follow this child until I die. And
Yeah.
he's got this like just such deep respect for who she is and what she can do. And he's
Yeah.
like, I will follow this. It doesn't matter where she goes. It doesn't matter what happens. Like, I am following this woman. And I just think that part like
Yeah.
made me emotional because I was like, yes, okay, Jack is on board, and not just on board, but he's like he's all in. He's locked in, as the people say.
Yeah.
So that was really cool.
And he treats her like she's the commander. Like I
Yeah,
forget what he references her as. That's
captain.
like the Homelander word, which is like our captain. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
he calls her captain. Like every time, and she like rolls her eyes at
yep,
him and stuff. She's like, you know more than I do. He's like, but you're in charge.
yep.
And he likes to tease her a bit with it, but it's like he fully, like you said, respects her.
Hmm.
And that actually kind of ties in with the thought I was having when we were talking about Corlath earlier, is he goes from pity to her to respecting her over time.
Hmm.
You kind of see that progression from that, like, oh, she's a fish out of water, to oh, she actually is like amazing. And then also he's in love with her at some point and stuff. But like you see that happen with all of the
Yeah.
characters that she interacts with closely as it goes from, I mean, with the ones that know her from the beginning, like the two characters who named the camera right now that are like her two friends at
Hmm.
the end, that are the Marians and stuff, like they respect her from the beginning because that's the first part they knew her, is her cutting off their
Right.
slash or sash. And but like with a lot of the other ones like Mathen and Jack and Corlath, they started seeing her from literally the beginning to what she becomes later and
Yeah.
stuff, which is very interesting.
Yeah. It's super cool. And
I actually wanted to mention it is, yeah. Oh, sorry, you go.
no, keep going.
I have lost my train of thought, so
Okay.
I cannot remember where the thread. It was dumb. I just had something and then it went away.
That's fair enough, fair enough, fair enough. Um, Also, one of the things we didn't mention at all in the summary, we've not mentioned up to this point, is Narknon, who
Narknon.
is a jaguar, basically, a panther,
Yeah.
depending on.
This book was for the horse girlies and the cat girlies.
It absolutely was. She's a giant cat. It's basically like a dog-sized cat. And I mean like a
Yeah.
big dog. Who
Yep.
basically is just like, well, Harry, you're my person now. I've chosen you. And she just sticks around.
Mhm.
And there's a few other cats that join them later in the book, but Narknon as a character is just so funny, and it's so true to cat personality and nature. And I found her character really funny. I love that when Harry and Mathen go to their little training camp for 6 weeks, that Narknon goes with them, and they all go back to the capital and see Corlath for the first time. He's just like, that's where that blasted cat went off to. And you realize that like she's kind of his cat, and she's just been like, peace out, Corlath. I'm gonna go with this lady now. You're dead to me.
But then also what he confesses later.
And so he was jealous of the cat because she went to go with him. Yeah.
He admitted after he like admits his oath with her and didn't have to be a king and like lead his people and stuff. So funny.
It was so good. It's so good. The other thing I thought was funny with her is after a certain event happens. I want to talk about the certain event because this is really important. And then we'll talk. I think we should talk about favorite characters next. Because I want to talk about Mathen and I want to talk about like his whole thing. But my favorite Narknon, one of my other favorite Narknon moments is when Corlath and Harry start to consummate their relationship. The Narknon is in bed also because she sleeps next to Harry, and then eventually
I forgot about that. Yeah.
The way that McKinley writes because it's a closed door romance. You don't see anything. You don't get any sort of spice level at all. Is that the way that she sort of explains that is that Narknon got up a few minutes later and stalked out angrily because she's just like, well, I've just been kicked out of the bed. This is rude. Which I just find really funny as a great way of using if you're like to use a closed door romance and to do that, but to use a tertiary character to like get across the subtle point you're trying to get across. Like I just thought that was really, really funny.
That's hilarious. I love that.
Okay, shall we talk about our favorite characters?
Yeah.
I mean, okay, I feel like we kind of already have
the same
I know
character.
we do, of course. And I'm going to go in backwards order.
Okay.
Because we've already talked a lot about Harry. We've already talked a lot about Jack, and we've not talked a lot about Mathen.
Yeah.
So I want to go in reverse order, basically.
Okay.
So for me, and we'll say why Harry's one of my favorites, why Harry's one of your favorites. She's one of my favorites because she's not a teenager.
Yeah.
I think that was a big thing. She's young. She's like 20, 21 or whatever.
Absolutely.
But she's not a teenager.
Yeah.
And so that made me feel better. especially because she got kidnapped and then marries the Hill King. Like, don't be a teenager.
Yeah.
Um, she there is always the risk of having white savior mentality of coming in to save the day, and
Yes.
she's half.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
quarter
She's more of
technically,
like a
or
quarter
an
or an
eighth even.
eighth or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
We don't know how far back it
I think she
was.
said it was her great grandmother. I think it
Okay,
was like
yeah, that actually.
mother's grandmother or something like that.
So it was like I think like an eighth or something, I
Yeah.
think is the right
So,
math of it maybe.
which I find really interesting. It's still again a little bit white saviory coming in.
That
And that
was kind
was
of what I was mentioning at the beginning,
yeah.
is I was like, there's that aspect of it. Like take that with that. It's almost like take that with that grain of salt,
Yeah.
enjoying the story. It's
As-
not as egregious as a lot of other stuff,
yeah.
but yeah.
And I'm actually comparing it to so she is of the hills to a degree, and the hills call to
Yeah.
her and she
Yeah.
goes back. And so there's sort of a homecoming type thing for her. And we don't know how
Yeah.
her grandmother like got to the homeland. We
Yeah.
we don't know those things. Um, but I think of the people who have been like the non-white people who have been in America at least for a long time
Mhm.
and that are like, well, my ancestor came from insert country here, literally wherever it is.
Yeah.
And I feel that pull between the two worlds. This is the culture I've grown up in.
Mhm.
So it could be like great grandmother, even say well great grandmother. So they're like a third or fourth generation American. Um,
Yeah.
but they still feel
Yeah.
something akin to the culture. They feel attached to the culture, to their like
Yeah.
ancestral culture in some way. So I thought it was cool the way that Harry was able to like connect to that and actually realize, oh, I actually fit in better here because of just genetics essentially, and the magic I
Yeah.
carry in me. Um, so I thought that was really cool. I like that she's capable, she's brave, she's a good female heroine, not like some other
Yeah.
like in the 80s where the female main character is like damsel in distressy and yet also is the like savior somehow. And
Yeah.
it's like you need a man to save you every time, even though you're supposed to be the hero. I
Mhm.
don't understand it. She wasn't like that. She was, I've got stuff I need to
Mhm.
get done, and I'm realizing that. And even if the guy that I'm in love with is not going to agree with that, I'm going to go do what I need to do to save people
Yeah.
because we can't pick and choose who we're saving. And we can't just say screw the
Yeah.
Outlanders because they're not helping us. Actually, we need to go save them. So I just thought she was a cool character. What are your thoughts on Harry?
Yeah. A lot of similar stuff about that, like mixed heritage, like all those kinds of things. Very interesting, especially engaging with the world that we're in today
Yeah.
and kind of what that looks like and stuff. This is a product of its time, which isn't always an excuse for things. This is written in the 80s.
Yeah.
But again, compared to other similar stuff, and even the things that she was inspired by
Mhm.
writing this setting, like I've read worse,
Yeah.
100% of like tapping and some of that stuff. So I completely agree with a lot of the stuff. Love that she's an adult. Even if she is just out of like teendom adults, like she's at least an adult. Um, and we see her kind of grow into more of an adult
Mhm.
in that. And the other thing I like is that she at some point questions the fact that she's getting all these magical, she can speak the language, she does stuff, but she also, we see her frustration in not being able to do those
Yeah.
things either. Like there isn't like it's just really nice seeing her go from I don't understand to I understand, but like she still doesn't understand.
Yeah.
And like her whole progression and story thing. The other thing, I mentioned this I think when we talked at one point, Harry is not traditionally beautiful
Yeah.
in like the way she's described. She's very tall for her height. She's actually very tall for even Demarian kind of a thing. Like I think Corlath and her are like she's like maybe just a tiny bit shorter than him. Like she's of an height of his, and I don't even remember how tall they describe him and stuff. But like he towers over most of his people, and she towers over most of Homelanders and also the other hill folk and everything. So also I don't remember how it's described, but I do like the image of her being taller than Jack or
Hmm.
Mathen
Yeah.
and stuff, which I feel like she is, but
Yeah.
they don't really like talk about them in comparison and stuff. She's also not particularly described as like very feminine, if that makes any
Hmm.
sense. Like she goes through all the trappings. She was that like wild child, ran around. Like it literally talks about her and her mother, like her and her mother had a conversation at one point. She's like, I should have started educating you sooner, but I wanted to give you time with your brother.
Hmm.
And I knew he was gonna have to leave. But then it mentioned like they would do start to do lessons, but then like, oh, we'll take out the books with us while we go
Hmm.
writing, and then it just never happened. The books never came out of the sack, kind of a thing and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like even her mother, I feel like had that element of wildness to her.
Hmm.
Obviously, she knew how to contain it. We see that Harry knows how to contain a lot of it because she's able to function, and like she's described as being very cold, but to a lot of
Hmm.
people. Um, which is like a lot of the time when we see female characters and things, like a great example, people hated Captain Marvel and
Hmm.
in the newer movies and stuff. And I'm not saying she was a perfect example of somebody with like this, but like she wasn't like super I don't like saying emotional, but like she wasn't super empathic, I
Ah,
guess
okay.
is the right way to put it. And like Harry is in a lot of ways, but like she also is not I don't know. This is like she is very different from a lot of other female characters. Even like you were kind of going back what you were saying, like the ones that are supposed to be the chosen ones. Like it's almost like if you're a feminine woman character in these stories where you are the chosen one, there you have to be soft spoken, you have to be XYZ or like that kind of a thing. And like Harry isn't any of those things. She is she's tall, she's like stocky in a lot of ways. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but like she's not like super curvy as like that good way. She's not described as that way. She's like sturdy. And I really appreciated that. The same thing with Erin. Erin, you see, we'll talk about her more in The Hero's Crown and stuff, but both Erin and her, Erin is a little bit more on the willowy side than Harry is
Yeah.
described, but like neither of them are described in a way that's like you couldn't believe that they could fight, if that makes any sense and
Hmm.
stuff. I don't know. I'm not probably describing this super well. It just like I really appreciated that aspect of Harry's character, especially as I'm gonna say as a plus size woman, and Harry isn't plus size, but getting a different female main character who is not like described as small or I don't know, fair or that kind of thing and stuff. Yes, Harry's blonde, but like she tans like very well and everything like that and stuff. So it just was really nice physically aspect of getting a woman character like that. So that's one of the aspects of why I like Harry and just her like she pushes things, but she also like she has to like push past basically her training more or less, like growing up of not being too much. Oh, that's actually thank you. I sorry, the thinking in my brain for thinking about that. That's actually a thing a lot of the time. Sorry, Kaytlyn. You see that a lot of the time, and I'm not with every person. I know people will say that and stuff. Not every person says this, but a lot of women have dealt with this. Is like when they are a lot, whether that is they're a lot angry, a lot sad, a lot XYZ, whatever emotion, that is like they're told like why are you acting that way
Hmm.
and everything. And you actually see that with Harry, like she had to tone it down. Yes, there's a magical reason behind it, but she was able to be with somebody who understood that and let her express herself. But I think part of the
Hmm.
reason why she was able to do it when she was younger is because her mother, I feel like, also knew and understood
Right.
a lot of that stuff. And so she was able to help temper it in a lot of ways. But because where she was at, she didn't have anybody else after her mother died to express herself with and everything. So when she came to Corlath, and it was like, it's very like nice being able to see that because a lot of women don't get to express themselves fully. They have to like temper themselves down or make themselves less so they don't
Right.
push buttons or whatever. So that's one of the other aspects I love about Harry and like her journey and stuff. So
Yeah.
sorry, that was a lot.
Oh, it's okay. Final thought on Harry. Okay, and I
Yeah.
just want you to know that I literally just thought of this right now. So just take this with a grain of salt. And we'll talk more about this.
Okay.
Well, character we didn't talk a lot about was Luth. And we'll talk more about
Yes,
him
yeah.
next book, and there's reasons why.
Yeah.
I have this
Yes.
theory, okay? Maybe I should leave this for the
Mm.
end. Or maybe like tomorrow, not tomorrow, but like when we record, maybe I should leave this because we are recording it tomorrow. I don't know. I don't want to forget
So
it.
leave this with the Hero's Crown recording. Right, type it out in the
A
notes.
message. Okay, okay, that's a great idea. Type it out in the notes. It's a great idea.
Because I'm going to reference this when I type up my summary for
Okay.
question.
Question? You see my question?
I do see your question.
Anyway, okay. Don't worry, guys. You'll hear this in the next episode.
Yeah.
Yes. So then there's Jack. Again, I feel like we talked a lot about Jack. He's a great character. He loves
He
the place
is.
that he was assigned.
Yeah.
I think that's great. I don't necessarily have
Yeah.
more to talk about Jack. He is just one of my favorite characters. I love that he becomes a Queen's Rider at some point, and he just is so in like he's all in with what they're going through and with trying to stop the Northerners, all that stuff. That's just my theory. Not my theory. That's my thoughts on Jack, is that he's a great character. I love that he's an outlander that actually loves the country he's been assigned to. I think as somebody who, like for myself, has lived in a foreign country and really loved that country when a lot of other people don't necessarily.
Yeah.
I relate to that a bit of being like, oh no, I feel like I belong here, even though I'm not actually from here. There's something about it that really speaks to me and calls to me. And I think Jack is very much like that. So,
Yeah.
what are your
Totally
thoughts?
agree. I completely agree. He's just very comfortable with who he is and with everything that I feel like that feeds into his interactions and stuff. And
Yeah,
he expresses multiple times later, like, why don't you? Because literally just a colonel. He could become a general if he wanted, because of how long he's been in service. And he's just like, if I did that, I have to leave. I don't. I'd rather stay in this like smaller position and in the place that I care about with the things that I care about rather than move forward XYZ and stuff. So that's something
yeah,
I very much appreciate about him. And yeah, it's like there's not a lot to add about Jack with what I already said. One thing I
yeah,
do want to say, because we're about to go into Mathen, because this ties in with both Mathen
yeah.
and Jack, and this is not a derogatory thing towards either of them. This is just a thing I have a problem in general with stuff like this. Something that bothers me, and I get why this happens and things. Also, some of the media that I'm watching now does this a lot, and it's not just the time when it was written thing. When it's a female main character who's like the chosen one or is like whatever in whatever context that is, very rarely does she have adult women mentors teaching
Oh
her
yeah,
anything. That's one of my biggest pet peeves. I see that a lot in Japanese isekai, which there's things I could go into about that I won't. But that happens a
sure.
lot with female-led cast and stuff. Whether it doesn't matter what it's about, it could be something about like there's one that I was watching where she just like was learning to be like multiple things, and every single one of her mentors was a man, and I'm like, why? But like this, again, nothing wrong with Mathen, nothing wrong with Jack. I do know the context of the culture that they were in at the time. There was a lot of like there used to be more women warriors, but there's not as
Yeah,
many anymore, and I'm like, I get what you're trying to say with this, and she's a new era where there'll be more, but it still is annoying that there was like basically no women writers when there could have been, because
right.
there was mention of there being women warriors, just like not a lot. And I'm like, there could have been one and stuff. This is actually a
Yeah,
pet peeve I have with another series a little bit, and I get again why the author did it. I get the point they were trying to make, but I really wish I could find more stuff where the girl slash woman, and it, again, in whatever context, is learning to how to be a better warrior or XYZ from an adult woman character and stuff. So
yeah. I
that's
hadn't really
something
thought about that.
it's something I'm blaming isekai because I keep watching isekai
I'm
and
blaming Isekai.
it yeah, I'm blaming isekai. I love isekai, but that happens a lot with isekai with women, with girls or women main characters and stuff. And
Right.
everything. They maybe at the minimum have girlfriends, and I say that as like they have girlfriends who are like doing the same stuff they have, but they never have a mentor woman. So,
Yeah.
uh, that's just something that kind of like stuck out to me in this. Again, not throwing that shade on the context. It just like a little platform of, again, it's a product of its time, but also it's still an issue that I keep seeing in things and stuff. It's even in one of my pet peeves with the Kel series, and I get why we did it. I
Ooh.
get why we did it
Yep.
the way, but it still is annoying, and I would like to see other contexts. So that's
Yep.
it. We'll
I
move on now. Or, well, you say your thing with that.
I totally agree. As I think what I was going to
Okay.
say with that
Yeah.
I am trying to think of one where you do get a female, an older woman who's a mentor. And to be completely honest, I can't like think of it off the top. I can't think of any off the top of my head.
Any of the ones that have really like that stick in my brain, can't think of it. Like, I'm not
I
going to go
will
into all of it and
say,
stuff, but
um, okay, this isn't a female main character, so it's a male
uh,
main character who has a female mentor.
that's
It's
also fine with me. But
it's Dave Eddings, oh gosh, the Belgariad series.
mm,
Um, as I don't think there is in the other one.
mm,
Um, there's Polgara, who is like w the most powerful female wizard on the planet, and she raises the main character, and she's both mentor, mom, aunt, like all of the above. Um,
mm,
teaches him magic, teaches like, well, I don't think she teaches him magic. I can't remember, but like teaches him. She's basically his teacher slash mom.
yeah,
And is very important for the like story, basically.
yeah.
So anyway, that's that. Finally, the end. The best, the best character in the entire book, Mathen.
Mathin.
Now, um, why don't you go first? Because I want to hear what you have to say first before I go into my spiel on why I love him.
Okay. Okay. Um, I actually couldn't remember Mathin's name when I went into the book. I knew who he was, but it'd been so long.
Okay.
And it was like
Yeah.
a different name and everything. And as soon as he came, like they said his name, I was like, Mathin, that's who it was.
Yep.
And he just it's very interesting because he was not what I remembered him as. It'd been a while since I read this and stuff.
Right.
I like kept getting him mixed up with a couple of them. I thought honestly when I was actually realizing this more recently as I've read some of the stuff is like my brain definitely had interesting memories about how certain things worked, not just in this book, but some of like her other stuff and everything. And
Right.
I thought he was more friendly at the beginning, but I was getting him mixed up with one of the other
Mm,
writers. And I realized, like, oh no, he was one of the, like, he was a one that was just very stoic and serious at first. And then you kind of see him open up as time goes on, and he, like, really truly starts to believe in her, and he sees what is capable of and everything. And then, like, falls in love with her as a daughter, basically.
right.
And
Yeah.
it's just something like, I appreciate about that and stuff is like he very much is like he's already a dad. Like he like it talks about at some point like he has a wife and daughter who are still a part of his family's business and everything. And he like as far as we're aware still loves and cares about them, but he has his own path. And now he has a like surrogate, I don't even want to say
Yeah.
surrogate, but like has another daughter that like fits into the thing that he truly is like passionate about, which is like wandering and serving the king and everything. And
Yeah.
it's just very like sweet watching because I think honestly that is the thing with Mathen is Mathen is more of a dad to Harry than Jack is. Jack is
Yes.
like fun
Yeah.
uncle vibes and is like
Yeah.
friends. And Mathen is her teacher, her mentor, her like sort of father in this whole context and everything. And I appreciated that about him, I think, in that how well he took care of her, even though she wasn't his own. And I think that was a really big thing that stood out to me about him was like
Yeah.
he made sure she was fed. He made sure like he was a little bit mysterious sometimes. I wouldn't tell her certain things because of certain contexts and stuff, but like he also
Yeah.
wasn't like he was just like a very stoic dude in a lot of ways. It's funny
Yeah.
watching him and hers interaction, how sometimes she'd get annoyed with him because he just like would say something and then she's like, I've got to be patient because if I'm impatient, he won't say anything. So it
Yep.
was just their whole dynamic was like really good and stuff. So yeah, those are my thoughts on
I agree.
Mathen.
Yeah. I think the way that he adopts her is really big to me, especially
Yeah,
because the reason Harry is in Damar in Daria, I guess as the Outlanders call it, is because her father has died. And
yeah,
Richard brought her out to be with him because otherwise she would be a single woman living alone in the homeland and um his assignment was out here and so she's recently lost her father and it doesn't
yeah,
necessarily go into the grief around that. I think that was an area we could have explored a bit more.
yeah,
But it was the 80s and she had other plans. Um,
yeah,
but to see Mathen become a father figure and like just to
yeah,
see his pride for her and seeing how hard she's worked, seeing her become the Laprune Minta and win the Laprune trials
yeah,
was just super moving to me. And it's always moving to me because at the end, um, Harry's off defeating the Northern King. Corlath is magically trying to help her from a distance, and as he's doing that, he's
yeah,
concentrating and focusing. Mathen is defending him, and Mathen takes a grievous wound, both
yeah,
grievous in like his bad wound, and also he gets poisoned. So Mathen is essentially dying, and Harry, she returns. She and Corlath have this conversation, and um, he proposes to her and it's all beautiful and cute and everything. Everybody's like, woohoo, it's a party. And then she's like,
yeah,
but where's Mathen? Because she wants her dad to be there, essentially. Um, and Corlass gets just like sad suddenly and he takes her to the tent where all the wounded are. And Mathen
yeah,
is just laying there dying and she's weeping and he's like, I'm so proud you're gonna marry the king. Like
yeah.
again I wrote down the quote because I was like not quite weeping, but I was definitely emotional when I was reading it. Um,
You were
and
close.
Mathen is just I was close. It was nearly there. Um, but he's basically like, I'm proud of you, daughter of the writers. And let me go. I'm just glad to have been a part
Yeah,
of your life. And her emotions start to grow, and she's like, Kilar wasn't always just good for fighting. It once was good for healing. And she
mm,
lays her hand on Mathen's shoulder or chest or something like that and like heals him. And I love the way both in terms of her fury and sadness about Mathen, the
yeah,
way that the Kilar just like is burning her from the inside out. I was reading something recently about if you have a magic system, um, what like a good way to develop it is what is the cost for using it?
yep,
Because is it just completely renewable resource or is there a cost? Does it make you tired? Does it,
yeah,
insert whatever here? And for Keelar especially, the cost is that if you don't use it, it gives you migraines. And
yeah,
I love that, but also the cost of this particular moment is that it drains her. She's like all of my energy left down to the marrow of my bones. She's
yeah,
gone. And as she's going through the tent, like healing all the people in the tent, and not every person will survive because she only went through the one tent. But Mathen then
yeah,
has like a handprint burn mark on his arm where
yep,
Harry healed him, and just that whole scenario. And Mathen's like, I thought I was dead, but I'm alive now, and
yeah,
just super cool. I think Mathen's a great character. I think he's a good
yeah,
father figure. The fact that he patiently teaches her how to speak the language and is just like going through the camp, pointing at all the things. He's
mm,
just fantastic.
he
Head to
is. I
toe,
agree.
start to finish, fantastic. Great character. We need more
Absolutely.
Mathens.
Yeah,
Um,
I completely agree.
Brianna, what is your nostalgia rating for this?
I'm gonna say a 5 out of 5, even though I was disappointed with my quote unquote reread with listening to the narration and stuff.
Sure.
I still loved this book, and am feel nostalgic coming back to it and these characters again and everything. So I still think it holds up for what it is. Uh, and kind of what it did for me, honestly, all those years ago, in a very pivotal point of my life and stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, so yeah, 5 out of 5, 100%.
Oh, yeah, same. 5 out of 5. I
Yeah.
don't remember the first time I read it, to be completely honest with
Yeah.
you. I don't remember it. But I remember loving it. I remember every time I've read it since, I love it. And this is why I've asked you to find me a copy, because I have only
Yes.
ever read it
Still working on that.
because you own it. And then I think I checked it out from the library one time when
Yeah.
I was in the UK. But I want it. I want to own it. I want to reread it again and again and again because I just love this book. I love it.
Yeah.
5 out of 5. That's all I have
Literally,
to say.
this is one of those ones that I really wish could be a movie, but I know that they would do a terrible job with
Oh,
it.
I know they would.
Yep.
So bad.
Yeah.
All right. Any other thoughts on the Blue Sword that we're not going to get to in the Hero on the Crown? Let's be real.
I don't feel like there's anything. If I remember anything, I feel like it would still tie into the Hero and the Crown and
Yeah,
stuff.
I totally agree.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I totally agree.
Oh,
I'm excited to.
no,
Oh, just kidding. Go on.
I could say it in the Hero of the Crown, but you kind of mentioned it in your notes, but you didn't really bring it up, I feel like out loud and stuff, is
Yeah.
there
Oh, yeah.
yeah, that last part.
Yeah.
So there was a decent setup for a prequel, but there's definitely left some things that we like kind of don't see. Like we get to see Aaron in this a little bit, but like honestly, as I'm rereading Heroes in the Crown, it's interesting with how little the fullness of her character, which makes sense because she's like a mythological figure at this point and stuff.
Right.
But one of the things I will say as I'm reading Hero in the Crown with this, and we'll talk about this more next time. I feel like she almost maybe meant to write more in this world, but decided not to for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Because there's a few novellas that are about like side bits in this world, because I was looking into this. But like, I almost felt like there was supposed to be more after even reading both this and the
Yeah.
prequel, but there wasn't. She moved on to other stuff. So that's just kind of the way that this world felt kind of as I'm leaving it now and finishing up Heroes in the Crown.
That's a really great point.
Yeah. We could talk about it some more after in the next episode, but I just wanted to bring it up now because this is the main book and everything.
Yeah. It is something that I like. Obviously, I wrote a note about it, about all the mentions of Aaron here. Like his Aaron was 500 years ago compared to where Harry is. So in the Blue Sword, the Hero in the Crown is 500 years before. And to see like all these things that were mentioned in the Blue Sword, then of course we'll talk about this a little bit next time, were then mentioned in the Hero in the Crown. There were some other things that were added. Obviously, you have these mythological mentions of Aaron, and then you have to kind of put those in, flesh them out, and then also add some things. But I just thought that it was honestly really, really good. How she set everything up, you know? So obviously I do that because I wrote that note even though I forgot to mention it. But cool.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
No, that's it for me.
Great. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of the Readers Clubhouse. If you like this discussion, you want to hear more, you can find us on YouTube and Spotify every other Friday when Kaytlyn actually remembers to post the episodes. Check out the episode description for our socials. Join us in the Clubhouse next time as we discuss the prequel to this book, The Hero in the Crown by Robin McKinley. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.